Did you see the viral tweet talking about how it's definitely queer? Oh my gosh, I totally knew. They just act so gay. Send me that tweet about it. I'm gonna make a TikTok about them. Hello, lovely people. I'm Jessica. My pronouns are she, her, and I've been out for since I was 4? Yes, I'm a lesbian. Did you tell? In fact, if this is your first video and you're interested in deep dives into queer culture, profiles of LGBTQ+ historical figures, and chats about life and parenting as a chronically ill, disabled lesbian, then you should absolutely hit the subscribe button below so you'll be able to find my channel again after this video. And also YouTube knows what you like, because you want YouTube to know what kind of a person you are. Today I want to talk about why we feel it's okay to speculate about the sexuality of people in the public eye and explore how outing celebrities actually harms normal people. But why would it be harmful? It's 2025 and it's totally fine to be LGBTQ+. I'm straight. My friends are straight. Gossiping about celebrities and their potential sexualities, it's just how my friends and I relax. It doesn't mean anything and it doesn't hurt them. They're not even real people. They're celebrities. Being queer or trans isn't a bad thing. In fact, it's never been a moral failing or a deviancy or any of the other negative traits that LGBTQ+ people have been branded as inherently being. The issue is that, both historically and not so historically, it hasn't always been safe or even legal to be visibly out, and that's not a decision that we can make on someone else's behalf. Surely it's okay to talk about celebrity sexuality if everybody knows, and LGBTQ+ people need that representation. But it's not like they're reading my tweets or watching my TikToks about them, so what does it matter? The celebrity that you're talking about might not see what you're posting, but other LGBTQ+ people might. If you're comfortable speculating about a celebrity's sexuality, what does that tell your queer and trans friends about how you see their identities or how you talk about them if you consider their language and mannerisms so gay? Before we go any further, I just want to give you a heads up that I'm going to be touching on homophobia, violence against LGBTQ+ people, and people being publicly outed in this video. Please take care of yourselves and feel free to give this video a miss if you're not in the right headspace for it. That is fine. But if I'm not speculating about people's sexualities on Reddit forums, then what am I even meant to do on my morning commute? Look out the window? It's a very boring city train. Not even a pretty field in sight. Don't panic. If you're worried that cutting down on your gossip habit will leave you with nothing to do, then I have just the answer for you. Heyday! It's my new favourite game, and the lifestyle farming simulator you clearly need. I do! Are there cute animals to take care of? Many! Are there adorable little tasks that work in a controllable and predictable manner that really help me crush down my growing sense of unease and anxiety with the world? Oh, that's my favourite part. My life's a little hectic right now, preparing for twins, crawling to pregnancy being high risk, chasing after Rupert. But I've been finding something that really helps me to chill. Now I can design and run my very own perfect little farm. Absolutely love that now I've joined a really friendly neighbourhood, and I can take part in the weekly little derbies, and it also works really nicely as a game you can pick up and do whatever you want, whenever you want. My crops won't grow bad if I leave them for a few days. No, it's very chill. And I'll even help you out. I've partnered with Heyday to give 3 of my favourite items: hydrangeas, obviously, typewriter, and of course a nutcracker for Rupert, plus a whole load of other things in a glorious bundle that is normally worth $15.99, giving it to you for free, so that you can start decorating your lovely farm from the very start. And of course, if you've already downloaded Heyday, you can also download this bundle. Simply click the link in the description or scan this QR code on screen now to download Heyday. Then come back, click the link again or scan again, and your downloadable bundle will be there in your farm. I'm on it. Oh, but Jessica, do you not think that queer representation is really important? Representation matters. We have made massive progress over the last few years when it comes to LGBTQ+ rights, but we still live in a society that is deeply heteronormative. I mean, some of us live in countries descending into fascism. We're sorry. The rest of us love you. We hope you're okay. Which means that being heterosexual and cisgender is still seen as a default, even though, it's not. Going to go into my rant again about homosexuality in the animal kingdom, because I will. Research has shown that representation has a role to play in changing attitudes towards LGBTQ+ people and our increased acceptance. Thanks. In a piece for the Scholars Strategy Network about the 2014 paper, Getting the Message Out, Media Context and Global Changes in Attitudes Towards Homosexuality, they co-authored political scientist Professor Philip M. Adobe wrote, Gordon Alpont, an influential psychologist, is often cited in scholarly research for his contact thesis, which put simply says that under the right conditions, interpersonal contact is one of the best ways to reduce prejudice between majority and minority groups. Building on this idea, we argue that imagined contact, even with characters on a TV show, can change perceptions of outgroups. Now, IOB's research found a strong link between increasing mass support for minority rights and the factors that encourage and allow minorities to express their viewpoints to others, such as increased media representation. Is representation really that important? Yes, I've talked about this before. Yes, it's important. Growing up as queer or trans and knowing that you're not alone in how you're feeling, knowing that you're not broken or wrong, is invaluable. And it makes me incredibly happy that this does seem to be changing. And young LGBTQ+ people today have representation in terms of media, public figures, and adults in their own lives that would have been unthinkable 20 years ago. According to research by YouGov in 2024, 9 in 10 young LGBTQ+ people in the UK say there have been queer people in their personal lives as teenagers and onwards, and a similar number were aware of LGBTQ+ public figures as well. Exactly! Representation is really important. So therefore, it's necessary that LGBTQ+ people talk about whether our favourite celebrities might be gay. For me, as a gay child, teenager, I didn't ever really experience feeling that shame about my sexuality or feeling that I needed to hide it, feeling that I needed to in any way be ashamed of it. I didn't even come out to my parents because I didn't feel like I had been in the closet to my parents. Yeah, I very openly liked girls from a very young age. It took me until I was older than the age of 4 to learn what the word lesbian was, but I knew people in my real life who were partnered up with the same sex person, and it was normal to me. Just as normal as I knew some people who were divorced, or I knew some people who had parents where one parent had come from a different country, or I knew families where one parent had come from a different country, or I knew families where they celebrated a different religion. It was just variety and normal, and therefore I was just one of those varieties. I also grew up knowing that my godfather had been gay and had died of AIDS when I was about a year old. And so for me, knowing about queerness and feeling this sense of like, wow, this incredible person who my parents speak about so highly was queer. And I'm like, and so am I. Like, that's wonderful. That's a great thing to have and to share. I never felt a sense of, oh dear, I should feel bad about my queerness, because I didn't. I had that role model, even if he wasn't there. Wow, which sounds much like TV. Segue. The importance of representation to LGBTQ+ people doesn't give us a right, though, to demand it from anyone. In a 2024 article from Men's Health, author and journalist Philip Ellis wrote, "I get it, I really do. Growing up queer is isolating. We become so accustomed to seeing ourselves only as the butt of jokes in media, or training ourselves to see queer content through the lens of metaphor, that when we finally encounter a canonically queer story, it can feel like a gift meant just for us. And it becomes easy to forget about anyone else's feelings, anyone else's struggle, but our own. Your favourite singer might not be gay. There are amazing LGBTQ+ singers whose work might speak to you. The actress who you had a crush on when you were younger might not be queer, kills me, but there are other brilliant actors who are out. Sure, they might not win awards for playing LGBTQ+ characters on screen the way that cis straight actors still seem to do, but that reputation already exists without putting pressure on other celebrities to come out. It's not like celebrities would face any real consequences if they were gay, so why can't we just talk about the possibilities? Homophobia still exists. We have made massive progress over the last few decades when it comes to LGBTQ+ rights, but that doesn't mean that anti-queer and anti-trans hatred and even violence doesn't exist. This year, 2025 is going to be such a year. Wow. I mean, on a personal level, having twins, it's going to go great. I'm very happy. On a worldwide scale, we have to fight fascists now. For those of us in countries where gay marriage is legal and our rights are protected, at least in theory, in law, it's important not to forget that these hard fought for rights aren't universal. There are countries where speculating about someone's sexuality can genuinely put them in danger. And even in countries with legislation that should protect LGBTQ+ people from discrimination, homophobia is still deeply embedded. In a piece for the BBC in 2021, journalist and researcher Reina Gattuso explains that being out and perceived as queer can also increase workers' risk of experiencing bias. Some stats for you. Gattuso reports that despite how the European Union and the US have laws against employment discrimination based on gender and sexuality, that doesn't mean that discrimination doesn't happen. As of 2019, 21% of all LGBTQ+ Europeans reported experiencing workplace discrimination. Amongst transgender people specifically, that rate jumped to 36%. In the US, 36%, yeah, I know it's the same stat, roll with it, of all LGBTQ+ people reported workplace discrimination, and 46% reported being closeted at work.
Oh, this is all really depressing.
Unfortunately, it is. Gattuso also highlights the rise in anti-trans legislation, making many trans people feel unsafe at work. Trans and non-binary people are especially subject to increased workplace discrimination based on the enforcement of binary gender norms. In the United States, 90% of transgender people reported either experiencing workplace discrimination or hiding their identity to avoid it. In the EU, 6 times as many trans people as cis, lesbian, gay or bisexual people reported being assaulted at their jobs, which has got nothing to do with anybody's anything. At work. We should feel safe at work, for goodness sake. Ugh. All of this is focused on being openly trans or queer in the workplace. But for celebrities, the line between their work life and personal life is often incredibly blurred. While celebrities might benefit from the illusion of intimacy with their fans in some ways, it can also result in those fans feeling entitled to every aspect of a celebrity's life. Oh, come on, celebrities are very rich and powerful. You telling me I need to feel sorry for them? Especially if you're a celebrity who's grown up in the public eye. Did Chloe Grace Moretz get engaged at Disney? Did she just go to Disney with that girl that she's with all the time and wears matching rings with? Who's to say? You know what? If they sell the photos of their wedding where they call it a wedding, fine. If we see some photos taken from a helicopter of them dressed in what we assume to be a wedding, we say nothing till they say otherwise. Nothing. Celebrities might have financial and other types of privilege, but that cannot protect them from systemic homophobia or transphobia. And while celebrity interviews or following them on social media might make us feel like we know everything about someone, we don't know people's individual circumstances or the potential consequences if they came out. Also, you can be very famous and very happy to be out publicly as a famous person, but also feel that it wouldn't privately be the best thing for you. Maybe you're waiting for your parents to die. You know, just because you're a celebrity doesn't mean you don't have homophobic parents and you need them to pop off. In a piece for The Guardian in 2023, reporter Carrie Paul explains that many people, celebrities and the rest of us, do not feel safe being queer in the public eye, with good reason. The queer-baiting debate continues in a climate in which 3/4 of Republican senators voted against codifying gay marriage into law. You are not getting into rainbow heaven. Nazis are publicly intimidating drag queens at children's events. They're not getting into any heaven. And anti-LGBTQ+ hate speech online is on the rise. And that's not gonna be helped by anything. Fricking Zuckerberg. Coming out can be a deeply personal experience, and being outed, having the choice of when you want to come out taken away from you, can be incredibly detrimental to someone's mental health and even their safety. The paper, Stress of Being Outed to Parents, LGBTQ+ Family Support and Depressive Symptoms Among Sexual and Gender Diverse Youth, which is a long title, which was published in the Journal of Research on Adolescence in 2024, found that LGBTQ+ youth who were outed to their parents reported higher levels of depressive symptoms and lower amounts of LGBTQ+ family support than LGBTQ+ youth who were not outed to their parents. Yes, so all of those laws that are currently coming out across various states in the US, telling teachers they need to phone home the second a they find out the child is using a different name or pronouns, it's not going to go very well, is it now? Although I do feel like there should be some kind of malicious compliance where they have to phone daily and be like, sorry, Theodore says he's going by Teddy today. I needed to phone you. Yes? Oh, you were in a meeting? Well, the law says Theodore's going by Theo. Theodore's going by Dor. Yeah, I'm not sure either. Theodore's going by Matthew. Oh, it's his middle name. Ah, there we go. Hi. Oh, you've lost a business deal because I keep calling. Oh, darn. Phone your representatives about it. Well, I'm glad this research exists so we can point to it when politicians disregard the potential harm of requiring schools and teachers to out children to their parents. It's also slightly depressing that we need scientific proof of something that pretty much any reasonable person or any LGBTQ plus person would be able to tell you. Should we use sweeping statements like any LGBTQ plus person? Because we've got Caitlyn Jenner in here and we do not stand with her.
Okay, I'm not saying we should out children, obviously, but when we're just speculating about adults, we're not forcing them to come out just by guessing whether they're gay or not.
Agency and privacy. However famous someone is, they deserve to decide when or even whether they come out. The gossip and speculation around celebrity sexualities today is a hangover of homophobic reporting on queer or potentially queer people, often in the interests of safety of the good, upstanding, straight, cisgender people. The idea that LGBTQ+ people don't deserve privacy is pervasive. An article for the Media Diversity Institute in 2022 by Joseph Monahan reports that the paper Sydney Morning Herald published the names, addresses and occupations of many who marched in the 1978 gay and lesbian Mardi Gras, intruding on their privacy to create scandal and shame. This act resulted in many losing their jobs, being kicked out of homes, or having their rental tenancy terminated. This kind of horrific quote-unquote journalism was far from a one-off. Monahan continues, this dark history within journalism is universal. One of the first transgender women to receive gender-affirming surgery, April Ashley, who had been working as a model, was outed as being trans by paper The Sunday People in 1961. Her career was derailed and she never worked as a model again. Pop singer Will Young has said that he only came out publicly as gay because he had been told by a UK newspaper that the story of his sexuality would run with or without his consent, and he wanted to feel the ownership of it. Wouldn't you? Yeah, but that wouldn't happen today. You're making a really big deal about this. It's just fun. In 2022, actress Rebel Wilson shared an image of herself with her current partner. I think they're married now. Ramona Agruma on Instagram. So, current wife. It was a coming out post, but the timing of sharing this part of herself publicly wasn't her choice. The Sydney Morning Herald then published a staggeringly misguided article detailing how angry they were that Wilson had chosen to go public with her partner, rather than let them keep the story as a newspaper exclusive.
Wait, what?
Oh yes, columnist Andrew Hornery explicitly told us about how he'd given Wilson 2 days to comment on her new relationship before they published it and outed her. Donaldson continues, when she made the move to take control of the narrative of her own life, Hornery said, big mistake. Despite essentially admitting blackmail, Hornery claims that Wilson's choice to ignore our discreet, genuine and honest queries was, in our view, underwhelming. To somehow make matters even worse, he then claims that sexual orientation is no longer something to be hidden, even in Hollywood, and that Wilson wouldn't have experienced the kind of discrimination that sadly still affects so many gay, lesbian and non-hetero people. Sir, you do not know her. The idea that Wilson wouldn't have experienced discrimination because she's famous? The insistence that Hollywood is now A-OK with openly queer celebrities would be laughable if it weren't so painfully false. We're currently living through a horrific rise in anti-LGBTQ+ sentiment and political power, particularly for trans and non-binary people. And you have the nerve to think that outing a woman is doing her a personal and professional favour? Yeah, sure, but it was technically still her choice to come out in an Instagram post, wasn't it? Rebel Wilson came out before Hornery and Sydney Morning Herald were able to out her. She may have reclaimed a little agency, but her privacy was still invaded. And while this kind of reporting is rooted in historic homophobia, it's fed by how willing people are to speculate about people's sexualities, regardless of the impact it can have. As Ellis put it in Celebrities Don't Owe It to Queer Fans to Come Out. Every person, queer or not, famous or not, deserves the privacy and freedom to determine who they are for themselves, in their own time, before they share that with the world. And let's be clear, coming out is not something that anyone is required to do at all.
Okay, so maybe we shouldn't speculate about living celebrities' sexualities, but surely it's fine to talk about dead celebrities and whether they might have been queer.
We have always been here. Is it outing if the person is dead? Faced with the persistent myth that LGBTQ+ people are a new invention, it could be reassuring for us to point to the queerness and gender non-conformity of historical figures. Yay! I get it. I do it too. But talking about people from the past with today's language of queerness can be messy. We're used to the erasure of the very real historical queerness and transness of people, but it's frustrating to hear women described as gal pals when we have the letters between them declaring their love. However, in wanting to prove that LGBTQ+ people have always been here, it is easy to flatten real people into neat boxes that fit within our contemporary understandings of queerness. I'm sorry, are you saying that if someone never explicitly labels their queerness, then we're just supposed to ignore it? No, I'm saying that it's important to pay attention to the language. For example, Marlon Brando never used the term bisexual. He was open about having slept with both men and women. In an interview with journalist Gary Carey for his 1976 biography, Marlon Brando, the only contender, good title, he said, "Homosexuality is so much in fashion, it no longer makes news. Like a large number of men, I too have had homosexual experiences, and I'm not ashamed." Of course he's not. He's Marlon Brando. I doubt he feels shame, and nor would anyone else sleeping with Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando is bisexual! That is so cool!
I think it's important to listen to people's own words about their sexuality and experiences and read contemporary reports from their life from trusted sources when it comes to historical queer and trans people. I don't think it's inaccurate to describe Brando as bisexual, but it's important to acknowledge that if he was alive today, he might pick a different word. Pansexual. Maybe he's sexually fluid. Who's to say? Look at me, speculating, doing just what I said not to. It's hard, when looking back to, say, the golden age of Hollywood, to pick apart the truth below the rumours, the PR organised by the studios, and the fact that being queer was illegal. Cary Grant lived with Randolph Scott for years, but I don't know if it's possible to work out if they were in a romantic relationship. I mean, unless one of them wrote about it. In a 2024 Vanity Fair article reported, David Canfield writes that during Prohibition, underground gay nightclubs boomed in Los Angeles, even as homosexuality was still punishable by prison. The crowd in these establishments, which Jenny Hamill has reported included the likes of Grant, Dietrich, and many more big names of the era, varied greatly in terms of sexuality and gender, and stuck around even as intermittent raids threatened shutdowns and arrests. Until the war, the clubs remained robust, as did the free-for-alls taking place within them. This was Grant and Scott's social scene. They remained boldly public amid loudening whispers. The pair would occasionally flamboyantly attend costume parties in women's clothes, according to biographer Mark Elliott. Sounds pretty gay to me. Setting aside how men wearing clothes designed for women isn't inherently gay, we'll come back to that later, Canfield points out the notorious columnist Hader Hopper revelled in fanning the homophobic flames against Grant, once implying he wasn't normal, and later asking in a letter, whom does he think he's fooling? When so many people have different interpretations of a relationship and conflicting accounts of the same relationship, how do we figure out what's true? Well, I'm inclined not to believe a columnist who made money from people buying newspapers and magazines, who knew, in the same way that digital publications do today, that rumours of a star's secret sexuality would sell well. We don't have first-hand accounts of what Grant and Scott actually said about each other or to each other, though Canfield reports that Bill Royce says that Grant told him that he'd been in love with Scott from his earliest days in Hollywood, describing it as love at first sight.
Oh, that's really romantic.
Canfield also describes the 1933 feature in Modern Scream, wherein Grant and Scott's dynamic resembled that of the romantic couples profiled in those very same pages. And even 90 years ago, some people wondered if there was more between Grant and Scott than met the eye. Also, I just love that they did like a little at-home feature. Come to our home, see around, meet the stars who are living in a completely platonic relationship together. Nothing to see, people. He goes on to explain how all of the interviews actors did at the time were organised by the studios, even if the fans didn't necessarily know that. And if Grant and Scott had been in a relationship, would they ever have been asked to do that interview together? And when we talk about historical figures, it's important to take into account how even today, people who are open about their sexuality still face people inventing, frankly, nonsensical rumours about how they're actually covering up their real sexuality. Take Hugh Jackman, whose 27-year-long relationship with Deborah Lee Furness is viewed by some as merely a way to hide the actor's gayness. After all, she's 13 years older than him, and while she's very attractive, she doesn't necessarily fit the impossible ideals of what a woman in Hollywood should look like. He couldn't possibly be attracted to her or in love with her for reasons of love. He was just in a relationship with her for almost 3 decades because he needed to cover his gayness.
Wait, are some people saying they were in a lavender marriage?
Despite splitting up with Furness in 2023, Jackman is still attracting rumours that he's only dating his former co-star Sutton Foster as a PR stunt to hide his supposed queerness. Foster and her ex-husband, Ted Griffin, filed for divorce in October 2024, leading to speculation of an affair between her and Jackman before their relationship ended, which, you know, as a rumour is probably a bit more true than most of the rumours we're talking about today. I say nothing. My goodness, sorry. The sheer absurdity of these rumours highlight how our society that, on some level, still sees queerness as a shameful secret that can only be hinted at to the extent we ignore that people actually want to tell us about their sexuality. I mean, what? I'm still stuck on Hugh Jackman. So some people are saying about Hugh Jackman that he's got the PR affair to cover up the gayness. So are we now saying that being gay is worse than having an affair on your wife for almost 3 decades? Well, maybe if they don't want people wondering about the sexuality, they shouldn't act so gay. The myth of gay mannerisms. Where do I even start with this one? How about there are no traits that are exclusive to straight people, or to queer people, or cis people, or trans people, or to men, or to women? The gender binary is false. I know. A limp wrist isn't an indication of queerness, even though I have one, and no one owes you a performance of their sexuality or gender in a way that meets your expectations for what queerness or transness should look like. There's no one way to be queer. There are style choices that LGBTQ+ people can make that might signal our queerness or transness to each other. Badges, undercuts, cuff jeans.
Oh, some really cool t-shirts which have lesbians kissing on, or horticultural lad, or a carnation.
We can joke that being unable to sit in a chair properly is a bisexual trait, but we also understand there are others who can't sit in chairs. It's not necessarily applicable to every single bisexual people, and I'm very okay with moving away from reductive, binary, and, let's be honest, often homophobic ideas about what mannerisms, gestures, and body language are gay. Even in 2025, anyone who deviates even slightly from strict gender norms has their sexuality called into question.
Like Harry Styles. He looked so hot in that dress.
Harry Styles, yes, you knew I was going to bring up Harry Styles, didn't you? He's been described as a desperate queerbaiter for his totally unreasonable choice to wear clothing often designed for women and refusing to comment on his private life, which does not equate to him being queer. I mean, do I get a shocked look every time I tell someone I have a wife? Yes. Yes, I do. Is that sometimes fun? Occasionally. Only occasionally, though. Sometimes I just want to move on with my day. Got things to do. Who does it help to brand certain behaviours as gay? What message does that send to LGBTQ+ people who don't see themselves in those stereotypes? That they're not really queer? I mean, I as a teenager thought that I was going to have to Avril Lavigne it up, you know. Thank goodness I learned that the queers, we come in shades of the rainbow. We need to stop policing people's behaviour, their bodies, their style. Actor Tyler James Williams was just 7 when his role on Everybody Hates Chris thrust him into the spotlight, and watching him grow up on screen means people have a lot of opinions on whether or not he's gay. He is pretty feminine. He does seem quite queer. In 2023, Williams felt forced to address his sexuality. I don't often share really long quotes by straight cis men in my videos, but I think this one's important. In a note posted to his Instagram stories, he wrote, "Usually I wouldn't address stuff like this, but I feel like it as a conversation is bigger than me. I'm not gay, but I think the culture of trying to find some kind of hidden trait or behaviour that a closed person lets slip is a very dangerous. Overanalyzing someone's behaviour in an attempt to catch them directly contributes to the anxiety a lot of queer and queer questioning people feel when they fear living in their truth." Williams continues, pointing out how this kind of scrutiny adds to the pressure for people to conform to cis heteronormative gender roles. It also reinforces an archetype many straight men have to live under that is oftentimes unrealistic, less free, and limits individual expression. But don't you think it's important to call out celebrities who are appropriating queer culture and queerbaiting, you know, as an ally I really care about these issues. Heteronormative assumptions and by erasure. First things first, I don't think that real people can queerbait. I mean, in fact, I made a whole video about queerbaiting and Taylor Swift specifically that you should go and watch if you're interested.
So you're not about to talk about how Taylor's secretly bisexual?
No! In researching this video, I found that journalist James Factora had succinctly expressed a lot of my feelings about queerbaiting in an article from 2022 for them, writing in a lot of cases, people who are accused of queerbaiting simply haven't defined their sexualities in concrete terms for the public. Whilst it might be frustrating to see celebrities whom we assume, keyword being assume, to be cis and straight, adopt queer aesthetics and practices, no public figure owes us any information about their sexuality. In the end, queerbaiting accusations strip public figures of their humanity and complexity and turn them into characters for our consumption. To me, this is emphasised by how being out doesn't necessarily mean that media and fans alike won't criticise you for queerbaiting. Some celebrities accused of queerbaiting have already publicly identified as queer, suggesting accusers have delineated an unspoken code of right and wrong ways to express queerness. Lady Gaga and Cardi B publicly identify as bisexual, but still get told off online for using queer imagery. That is their culture, people. We are their tribe. There are celebrities who are accused of queerbaiting who later come out as queer, like Janelle Monáe. There are celebrities who are accused of queerbaiting who feel forced to come out, like Kate Connor. Well, I mean, people might say that accusing someone of queerbaiting isn't outing them, but I'd argue that it's pressuring someone to publicly declare their sexuality. Also, that's clearly how Connor felt. His tweet coming out reads, "I'm bi, congrats for forcing an 18-year-old to out himself." So, yeah. When Connor was recently spotted holding hands with Maya Rafiko, his co-star from a new film, that scrutiny turned into accusations of queerbaiting. Oh no. How dare he? He's bisexual, people. Suck it up. Fans suspected that he had been somehow performing his queerness, that his role as a young bi man in Heartstopper and his viral video of him and his castmates at Pride were all done in some way to dupe his fans into believing he might be queer. Wait, that's how bisexuality works. I mean, I don't know how he defines it, but some people define it as, their gender and then other genders. So he can date around.
But seeing queer actors playing queer characters just makes sense. It's understandable that people want to know whether someone playing a bisexual character is bi.
It is upsetting to watch queer roles go to openly straight actors, and it is unacceptable how often cis men are still cast to play trans women. Or cis women, though that's a bit of an interesting one, Felicity Huffman. But Connor was just 18 when he felt pressured to come out. He was literally still a teenager. How have we got to a point where people think this is okay? And what makes all of this more infuriating, and it is already obviously very infuriating, is that Nick Nelson, who Connor plays in Netflix's Heartstopper, is bisexual. Connor dating a woman, let alone holding hands with his co-star, wouldn't invalidate his bisexuality or his character. The character is bisexual. The fact that we've normalised speculating about celebrity sexualities to the point where a teenager felt forced to come out on Twitter is appalling. Twitter. The space to question. Celebrities are expected to be certain about their sexuality as soon as it's called into question, and to be okay with journalists and fans calling it in question and expecting them to comment. I mean, they don't have to comment. Shawn Mendes has spoken about how uncomfortable the rumours and speculation about his sexuality make him. Whilst playing on stage in Colorado in 2024, Mendes told fans, "Since I was really young, there's been this thing about my sexuality and people have been talking about it for so long. And I think it's kind of silly because I think sexuality is such a beautifully complex thing and it's so hard to just put into boxes."
Oh, I really like that way of looking at it. Yeah.
You know what? You are allowed to take as long as you need to figure out your sexuality and your gender. And that's as true for celebrities as it is for anyone else. Queerness is, or at least should be, a rejection of the rigid rules that define what is an acceptable way to exist in a society that judges and punishes deviating from these acceptable norms.
So, saying that certain gestures or fashion styles is queer actually just upholds cis heteronormativity?
Exactly. In conclusion, you are allowed to decide how your queerness looks and what language you want to use. to describe your gender and sexualities. When we deny celebrities that same agency, those homophobic ideas about how LGBTQ+ people talk and behave end up trickling down to everyone else. It might seem harmless, but it limits our expression and encourages us to police each other's behaviour. Unfortunately, it does take away fun gossipy time though. I'd love to know what you think about this topic. Does the way certain behaviour is branded as gay make you feel like you have to perform your gender or sexuality in a certain way for it to count? Or leave a comment and let me know how you enjoy subtly signalling your queerness in a way that straight people might not pick up on, but other LGBT+ people will. Are you a bisexual who struggles to sit in chairs? Do you have the bisexual bob?
Oh, and if you want to subtly signal your queerness to other LGBTQ+ people, then might I recommend my beautiful t-shirt, which you can find underneath this video or linked in the description.
And if you like this video, you might enjoy my video about why we need a queer Disney princess. Because Rebel Wilson is right. Sometimes you think you're searching for a prince when you really needed a princess. You should also make sure to follow Jessica on @JessicaOutOfTheCloset, where she doesn't make videos speculating on celebrity sexuality. Not really my niche. But she does make videos and photos of her having fun and being gay. And thank you to Heyday for sponsoring this video. If you two are looking for a relax, then download Heyday today by using this beautiful QR code or the link down in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.